Welcome back, everybody, to my Percy Jackson review for episode 2. Now, it's not a fantastic episode, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's okay, it's not great. For Percy Jackson superfan like me, it's wretched, but for just a casual viewer, I could see some people getting enjoyment out of it. It's just the story isn't great. Just starting right off. So, Percy Jackson and Grover have a little bit of a conversation with each other when Percy wakes up from being knocked out from his fight with the Minotaur. Their conversation is okay. It's mostly kind of like a feels like a therapist session almost versus what an actual friendship conversation would be. So it's not that great there. In the books, it's a lot more Percy Jackson actually trying to cheer up Grover for him feeling like he failed his mission. Whereas in the show, it's just fine. It's okay. They try to have emotional impact in it, but I'm just not feeling it. And that's kind of the issue that this whole episode has, that you were supposed to have feelings and emotions, and it's just not there. It's just trying too hard, and they deviated from what the actual story was in the book. And if they would have followed the book more closely with more of that dialogue, I feel like a lot of the stuff would have come off better. For example, from that little meeting with Grover, Percy then goes meets Mr. D and Chiron, who is Mr. Brenner, and they have a nice conversation where we learn that Mr. D is actually Dionysus, but he doesn't find this out for himself. He has to be told this information by Grover, so really, he doesn't really figure anything out on his own. Now, one part I did really like about this exchange is that Mr. D was having Percy go grab him some alcohol for him to drink, and the reason why I like that is because Mr. D has the restrictions on him placed by Zeus. They can't have alcohol for at least 100 years. That's why he's at Camp Half Blood. He has to dry out because he went after some wood nymphs that Zeus fancied. The first time, he was just punished for 10 years. The second time, he's now being punished for 100. And that's the whole reason why he's there. He just doesn't like his job. So he's a very cranky god, and he doesn't really care much for the campers. Although it seems like he actually does care about them in this one, which I don't really like. I liked it when Mr. D, he was just an ass. Like, yes, he was a perfect representation of the gods because it really plays up why the demigods have their issues with the gods and how they react to the mortal world. So it just doesn't really sell it well when he acts kind of nice to Percy. Yes, he does use Percy's wrong name. He plays this joke on him, but it's it's not as bad as when it was in the first introduction in the books. I'm just going to be saying that. Now, Chiron takes Percy, he leads him through the camp, showing him the various things that are going on: the rock wall, the archery range, a lava pit, canoeing. So it just shows you like it's kind of like a normal camp with a couple dangerous areas, like a combat arena. That was kind of interesting to see that they added that in there. They make their way over to where the cabins are actually at, and we get a good look at them of what the demigods are actually living in, and they look okay but mediocre. Like, yes, they do look like great Greek temples, kind of like what the book has, but they don't have character. They don't have style. Like, for example, the Ares cabin, that should look like war. You should have barbed wires, tank guns coming out, spears, just God of War just oozing off this place. Versus what we see in the show, there's nothing really that. Like, none of the buildings really just jump out and say, like, I am the cabin for Ares, or I'm the cabin of Zeus, or I'm the cabin for Athena. Like, it just looks okay, but they did like the minimalist job of putting any character in anything in that scene. And I guess you could say that's actually a really great representation of this whole series problem, is that it doesn't have a lot of character. It has a lot of things, it does a lot of stuff, but where's the flair? Where's the passion? I'm not really sensing any of that from this. I'm feeling more emotion and feelings, but I don't feel any passion for what they're doing. That's kind of my issue for this whole thing. Now, eventually, Percy gets to where Cabin 11 is. Chiron tells Percy this is where he's going to be staying until he gets chosen by his patron god. Percy asks, like, okay, so when does that happen? And Chiron just says, well, it could happen today, could happen tomorrow, could happen sometime in the future. The god's timetable is not known to us. Pretty much just leading Percy to think that it would just never happen, that his father just doesn't care for him. Which, fair enough, that's a great representation of what people think about the gods, that they're kind of assholes, which really shows that Dionysus' representation when we first met him, he wasn't much of an asshole. He played a joke on Percy. okay. You could have done such a better job to make us dislike Mr. D a lot more, just to make us realize like these things are immortal beings that have lived for millions of years. So the fact that you are just a simple mortal that they are pretty much only know for a pinprick of time, kind of makes sense why they'd be such assholes to us. But we also can see from the demigod perspective that their parents don't care. So I would have liked that better representation with Mr. D upon that first meeting. But Percy just kind of whines about it, and I guess that's okay, but it just doesn't come off as well as it did in the books. Now, when Percy goes ahead, he enters cabin 11. He's directed to a space on the floor where he could stay. Now, in the books, he doesn't have anything with him, which makes sense. He just literally showed up out of the blue, but now he already has a sleeping bag, toiletries, and stuff, which is fine, but you took away one of the best scenes in the book. Well, I guess I shouldn't say the best scenes, but a good scene in the book between Percy and the Hermes counselor Luke. That's what Cabin 11 is. It's the Hermes cabin. And Luke tells Percy that he'll go grab some toiletries and stuff for him to have a place to stay for the night. That's kind of the first part that we really get to know Luke, and Percy just feels very appreciated that, well, Luke's going to go take care of that stuff for him, even if he has to steal it. Which Percy doesn't really think he is going to, but the mere fact that he's going to offer it is pretty great. Versus in the show, Luke and Percy's interaction is just more like, hey, I heard what happened to you, man. I'm so sorry. I feel ya. My apologies. Like, yes, everyone has to deal with tragedy. This whole camp deals with tragedy. You're literally being haunted by monsters from the time you turn 10 years old. So, yes, you have sympathy, but you it's something missing from what the books had. Like, the books had sympathy for Percy, but they also had levity. I don't really see a whole lot of levity here. It's just supposed to be this dour, feeling emotional scene. So I'm not a big fan of it personally. Now from here we cut over to Grover meeting it with a nymph. Now the wood nymphs, it's okay with design. I thought they were going to look more human, just with elements of nature mixed in. So I thought they're going to be a little more attractive, but I guess this works. I'm not a big fan of it personally. Grover, he goes on to have a meeting with the Cloven Council. I guess he wanted to talk to them about the gold dust thing, whereas in the book, he's going to be kind of scolded about his failures because in the books he lost Percy and also his mom died, so he kind of failed, but Percy didn't die, so his fate is kind of entwined with Percy, at least according to the books. Versus the show, I guess it's alright, but I would prefer that other storyline better, in my opinion. But that's me personally. I would just prefer it to be the more book storyline. Now, once he's learned that the gold dust kind of means that Hades has Percy's mom, he immediately goes over to Chiron and Mr. D, and he tells them what he found. And they like, we already know, but you're not going to tell Percy about this. We forbid it. You have to stay away. If you don't want to lie to him, sorry, just stay away. So we're glad that you're having a bit of a conscience now, but kind of too little too late. And you're like, wait, Carl, that's kind of harsh for Grover. He's just trying to protect Percy. Well, the reason why I'm being harsh is you snitched on your friend. You betrayed him. Like, uh, maybe it's not the biggest deal, but you literally got him kicked out of school. So, like, I'm having a hard time seeing that you really want to back up your friend here when you just go ahead and get him kicked out of school. Now, like, well, Carl, he was attacked by monsters. Of course he had to leave. And the books, he was able to stay for the rest of the semester. Even though he was still kicked out, it wasn't because of Grover. So you create some resentment there that wasn't needed, and now there should be a divide between you and Percy until you can fix the rift. Now, spoiler, that never happens, but it should still be there. Now from here we cut over to one of the more infamous scenes in the first few chapters of the books, where Percy's going to go use the restrooms, where he meets up with Clarice, the daughter of Ares. Now, in the books, it's a lot more fun, a little bit more dynamic between those two when they have their bit of a scuffle. In the show, Percy's just in the bathroom already, and she wants to attack him because she thinks that he's making up that he's fought the Minotaur, which makes no sense. He should literally be right now carrying around the Minotaur horn, showing his trophy off to the campers. And in the books, she's not accusing him of the Minotaur horn. She's mocking the fact that he could be Big Three material. Now, we don't really learn what Big Three material is until later, but pretty much what Big Three material means is that you're a child of one of the Big Three gods, Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades. Now, why is that a big deal? Because back after World War II, when that was all over, it was just pretty much a fight between Zeus and Poseidon's sons versus Hades. Once Zeus and Poseidon's sons won, so pretty much the Allies versus the Nazis, which are Hades' sons, they decide that, okay, we're not going to have any more kids. And they swore down the river Styx. And the ban held up for a good long time until recently. So that's the whole issue in the books. Whereas in the show, it's the Minotaur. It would have been a lot better if you just stuck with the whole big three material. It would have been a lot better, but I guess the writers want to change it up for some reason again. It doesn't make much sense to me, but fine. It's kind of the same scene plays out as it did in the books. Clarice and her friends about to give Percy a swirly. Percy doesn't want to, so he really concentrates, and all of a sudden the water from the torch shoots out, but doesn't hit Percy. They completely drench Clarice and the rest of the Ares kids, forcing them out of the bathroom. Now, as this happens, Percy turns to see a little black girl standing in the doorway, who we learn is Annabeth. Now, again, I have an issue here. You completely doing another race change like you have done throughout the entire show. You should really call this whole thing just Percy Jackson the race change, because Annabeth Chase is supposed to be a California girl that's white and blonde. Well, you kind of did the exact opposite there. So, well done, guys. They have a little interaction. It's kind of cool, but again, it feels hollow. Like, these kids are not good actors, which is fair. They're kid actors. You're going to have to. They're kid actors. They're not going to be really good, but still, it's just bad acting all around, even from the adults, which really doesn't have much of an excuse for their bad acting. Anyways, Annabeth tells Percy that she wants him on her team for Capture the Flag, where we learn that Capture the Flag for the campers is you dress up in Greek armor, you're allowed to bring weapons, magical weapons, anything to help you win. The only thing you can't do is maim or kill people. That's the only two rules. And what we find out is that it's going to be the Athena and Hermes cabin versus Ares, Apollo, and a bunch of the other cabins. So Percy's job for this, he's just to go stand on the border, just guarding it from any other campers coming across there to steal the red flag. Now, Percy ends up just standing around for a while, and really, nothing all that happens for like 4 minutes. Like, you could cut this down way down and just shown that some time passes and nothing really happens, but they just kind of dragged it out. Now, eventually, three of the Ares kids do show up. It was, of course, being led by Clarice, and they start fighting Percy. Percy starts to fight him off, and somehow he's actually able to hold him off. And this is probably one of the worst parts of the whole episode, is that Percy's actually able to fight back pretty decently. In fact, even breaking Clarice's spear, even though he's just showed up. He should have no training. And that's my issue with a lot of these shows. Like, it's not just when we see the female Mary Sue, it's also the male Sue. And this is an exact example of a male Sue. Well, you might be like, well, Carl, he has his ADH abilities. His battle instincts are kicking in and he can kick butt. Yes, the same thing can be said for the Ares kids. So as long as they both have those instincts, it should be an even playing field. So the one who has more skill, they should be able to take over and just completely pummel Percy. But that doesn't happen here. And versus in the books, that does happen. Percy is getting his ass handed to it, and the only changes when he's able to step back into the creek and feel a relief of power just surge through him, and then he's able to somehow fight back against the Ares kids and see everything more clearly, and he's able to outdo him and even destroy Clarice's magical spear. Whereas in this episode, he's not in water at all. He shouldn't have that relief coming through. He shouldn't be able to outfight them, but he's able to do it, and he's able to break Clarice's magical spear regardless, which I think is a major issue. But the showrunners just really did not care much for the books, and they show scenes, they show that they know what happens, but it's just the bare bones of what happens here. Anyways, Percy defeats all three of them, and all of a sudden he hears some whooping and hollering, and he sees Luke running across a cross bridge, carrying the Ares flag to their side, winning the game. Now, that's pretty much the end of things, and all of a sudden, Annabeth shows out of nowhere, and look at this ridiculous armor that Annabeth is wearing, alright? Just, what the heck is this? This is disgusting. Like, where's her Greek armor? Like, the shoulder things are too big. She looks like a knight, but come on. Well, put her in something that Percy's wearing at the very least. Don't have her wear this clunky armor thing. I don't know what the designers were thinking, but she can barely move. I really doubt she can actually fight in that armor. So why did you put her in this getup except for trying to make her look more tough and a badass? She really shouldn't look like that. Now, let me play this little clip for you.
Not bad, hero.
Were you here the whole time?
Yes.
You were here the whole time and you didn't help me?
Yes.
Why?
Listen. Percy. I'm sorry.
What is wrong with you?
Isn't that kind of stupid? Like, I'm just gonna be real blunt with you. Like, at least in the books, she gives Percy a good reason why she wasn't helping him out. That she wasn't there when the Ares kids attacked. That she ran over as soon as she could. But by the time she got there, she saw that Percy was being a badass. So she didn't really see the point of jumping in and helping him out. Versus in this, Percy getting his ass kind of kicked a little bit at the beginning, but immediately is able to somehow defeat them right away. And Annabeth just admits that she was there for the whole time, and all she does is she just pushes Percy into the water for no good reason. Like, it wasn't to, like, hey Percy, look at your wounds. Like, if you step into the water, I bet you'll heal from that. No, she just immediately just pushes him in. Like, why, guys? You couldn't do the scene in the books where Percy is exhausted from his fighting, and all of a sudden a hellhound jumps out of nowhere and starts tearing Percy open, but immediately is killed by all the campers. But Percy has severe wounds, and Annabeth's like, "Hey, walk into the water, Percy. I think that'll help you out." And they immediately heal, and as that heals, Percy's just like, "Hey, I don't know how this happens. I don't know how I heal." But the campers and Chiron aren't looking at Percy's wounds healing. They are looking at above his head, which they do the same thing in the book, which they do this exact same thing in the show. Everyone's looking at his head, where above him is the green trident claiming Percy as a son of Poseidon, which is cool, but it really feels unearned. It really does. Like, you should have showed Percy having to step into the water, regain some rejuvenation, is able to fight back. Versus this, really, that's all there is to it. It's honestly kind of lame in my opinion. Now immediately we go from here to a meeting between Chiron, Mr. D, and Percy. Percy is now having to be choose to go on a quest to find the Master Bolt for Zeus that was stolen. Zeus claims that it was Poseidon who stole it. Poseidon claims he didn't. And now also with Percy being claimed as a son of Poseidon, that just inflamed the war even more. Chiron and Mr. D say that it's probably that the Master Bolt is down in the underworld because Hades hates both his brothers, so he probably would be the one who wants to start a war between the two gods. Percy rejects the idea to go to the underworld until Grover shows up telling him that, hey, your mom's probably down there, so you should go over there and rescue her. And Percy then agrees to it. Now, why do I have a bit of an issue with this? I have a bit of an issue with this because in the books, Percy is slowly figuring out that, okay, if the gods are real, then the underworld is real. And if the underworld is real, I can probably go down to the underworld and rescue my mom and bring her back to the land of the living. Unfortunately, no hero before has done that, but hey, why not? Why not give it a shot? So immediately when he has the chance to go on a quest, he does. And in the books, Mr. D, he's not as like urgently trying to convince Percy to go on this quest as the show one is. In the books, Mr. D gives Percy a choice to be like, hey, you could become a duck. It'll be far better than what he has planned for you, pointing at Chiron. Because Chiron, he wants Percy to go on a dangerous quest that could get him killed. Versus Mr. D is just like, yeah, you probably don't want to do this. It probably gets you killed. Just let me do some magic on you. But whatever you do, I don't want to see you when I get back. Because at that exact moment, Mr. D has to leave for me up in Olympus, at least according to the books. Whereas in the show, Mr. D is writing Percy hard that he has to do this. He has no choice. That this is something he has to do. And it's just bad. It's just bad writing overall, in my opinion. Because one thing that they absolutely failed at in this episode is showing us why quests are so dangerous. Because that's what you learn in the books. In the books, going on a quest is super dangerous. In fact, it was so dangerous that Chiron had banned anyone from going on a quest since Luke failed going on his quest, which is why he has that massive scar on his cheek, is that he failed on his quest, and Chiron had just stopped allowing people to go. And Annabeth, she really wants to go on a quest to leave Camp Half-Blood to prove herself, which is why in the books she sticks to Percy like glue. She sticks to Percy like glue, And we really get a sense that, ooh, going on a quest is a dangerous thing, versus this, when they tell us that he's going on a quest, it's just like, okay, sweet. That it's just another Tuesday then, right? Like your demigods going on a quest. Probably everyone goes on a quest on a daily basis. We don't get that sense that a quest is a super dangerous thing, and it just lessens the impact of it. They just did a really bad job building things up in this episode to its crescendo. They had 40 minutes of time and they wasted it, in my opinion. And that's the thing. This episode should not be 40 minutes long. I'm just saying that right here. This episode should be 20 minutes max. I'm telling you that because there's so much that you could just cut out, rewrite, streamline this process. I could literally make this whole episode a lot more fun, a lot more engaging within 20 minutes. That's what this needed to be. This should not have been a 40-minute episode. They stretched out way too long. It should have only been 20 minutes with vital information that was fun for the viewer. The most of this, I was just like, eh. Like, all I got is that Percy is a whiny little kid, that the gods don't care for the kids, but don't seem like that bad of guys, that they care for the world, at least according to Mr. D. And Luke isn't a badass. Grover is a betrayer and not a really great friend, that he's more like your therapist. Annabeth, she doesn't give you a logical reasoning behind her plans like she should. It just fails in a lot of respects to this. Also, the fact that the quests aren't that big of a deal, that they don't really make you realize that this is something super dangerous, is a massive failing in my opinion here. Because we should be at this point be concerned for Percy's safety, that he's going to die. That should be what we're thinking. Percy is going to die on this quest. That's the level that needs to be at. We should be excited that he gets to go, but we should be thinking, oh dang, he's going on a quest where he will die. Like the last quest failed, this is not going to be good. So they fail in my opinion on that. But maybe I'm being too critical. I want to hear what you guys got to say. Leave your comments down below, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care now. Bye.